Hello! In this video we're going to learn about the grammar and inference rules of our new conjunction symbol. And I think you'll find that the grammar and inference rules are pretty straightforward, probably easier than the conditional. So let's get going. So we'll look at the grammar first. So the conjunction, we have this, what we call a wedge, and it's the conjunction symbol. We can just call it conjunction. A sentence that's formed by it we call a conjunction, so that means P and Q. P and Q are both true. We call P a conjunct, and we call Q a conjunct, right? So with a conditional, we call the thing that comes before the conditional the antecedent, and the thing that comes after the consequent. Here, there's no difference between right and left, and so we just call each one a conjunct. So we have slightly new grammatical rules. We have our first rule, every sentence letter is a sentence. We have our second rule, if something is a sentence, then putting a negation on the front of it is also a sentence. And then if we have two sentences, well, we know if we put an arrow in between them and parentheses around them, we get a new sentence. And also, if we put a conjunction between them and the arrow around parentheses around them, then we get a new sentence. So the grammar of and is just like the grammar of the arrow. It just goes between two sentences with parentheses around them, and we have our last rule that says nothing else is a sentence. So that's quite straightforward. The only issue with the grammar of the conjunction that's at all involved is informal notation. So I'm going to give some examples of how the informal notation with the conjunction symbol works, and then I'll actually write the rules out. So let's say we have P and Q are sentence letters. So we know we can put a conjunction symbol between them, put parentheses around them, we get a new sentence. And R is a sentence because it's a sentence letter, so we have these two sentences, and we could put a conjunction symbol between them, and we get parenthesis, parenthesis, P and Q, parenthesis, and R, parenthesis. And that says that all of P, Q, and R are true. So we have this sentence, P and Q and R. Well, there are two moves we can make with informal notation with it. We can remove the external parentheses. That's our old convention, right? We just learned about how, with conditionals, if you build up a sentence and you're done building it and you're left with external parentheses, you can drop them. Same thing with a conjunction. But then also, we say, let's drop those other two parentheses around the P and the Q, and we get P and Q and R. And so this is a new parenthesis dropping, and in this case the idea is when you have some conjunctions in a row and there are parentheses around the left conjunction, you can drop that one. We also have we can also build sentences that combine conditionals and conjunctions. So let's say we take P, Q, we put them together to form P and Q. We know that R is a sentence letter, but instead of putting these two into a conjunction to make that sentence, we can instead make a different sentence that's the conditional. And this says, if P and Q are both true, then R is also true. So if I sleep well and I eat enough food, then I will be happy. So with this sentence too, we can apply our old convention to drop the external parentheses, giving us parenthesis P and Q, parenthesis arrow R, and then we have another convention that lets us say, okay, when a conjunction is inside of a conditional, you can drop the parentheses around the conjunction. So we now have three rules about when we can drop parentheses to produce informal notation. First, we can drop external parentheses, like that. If you have them around P and Q, you can just drop them and you have the P and Q without the parentheses, and then that is an informal notation sentence. Secondly, if the parentheses are around a conjunction on the left, then you can drop them. So you have parenthesis P and Q, parenthesis and R. You can get rid of those parentheses. And finally, when parentheses are around a conjunction that is inside of a conditional, you can drop them. In the example we saw before, the conjunction was in the antecedent, but we can also drop them if they're in the consequent. So if we have P arrow Q and R, where the Q and R is surrounded by parentheses, we can drop them. And that's probably the one that's hardest to read when you see it in the derivation program. And so there are a couple of parsing problems on your homework mostly to help you get used to learning the informal notation rules, because the derivation system always uses informal notation. And so when you see a sentence that's in informal notation, you're going to need to know where the parentheses go in order to figure out what rules apply to it, and just whether or not it's conjunction or conditional. So that's the grammar. So good, let's take a look at the inference rules. These are really simple, which is nice. So One rule we have is called simplification. So this is the example, what we saw in the example in the text. The closest women's bathroom is in corridor U, and the closest men's bathroom is in corridor U. Oh, and is in corridor T. So it follows from that the closest men's bathroom is in corridor U. It's a valid inference, right? No matter what, the conclusion is true if the premise is, and you don't need to know anything about the specific vocabulary used in the inference. You say, oh, the conclusion is just one, the premise is an and the conclusion is one of the two pieces of the and, so if the premise is true, so is the conclusion. So we're going to capture it in our logical language, and it's really straightforward. If we have a conjunction P and Q, we can write down P, and we call that simplification, and we also can call that simplification left, because we're simplifying to the left conjunct. If you have P and Q, you can also write down Q, and we call that simplification again, or simplification right. So when you're in the program, when you write, line 3S, and you apply simplification to a conjunction, then if you just write S, the program will ask you which one do you want. And if you write SL, it'll know you want the left one. If you write SR, it'll know you want the right one. So you can write down whatever you prefer. And this rule works with conjunctions, but of course it doesn't work with conditionals. And the conditional rules don't work with conjunctions, right? So modus ponens and modus tollens are about how conditionals work. They don't work with conjunctions. Simplification is how conjunctions work and doesn't work with conditionals. We also have a rule that lets us build a conjunction. So if you have the sentence P and you also, on another line, have the sentence Q, then you can infer P and Q. We call that rule adjunction. You're adjoining them, you're putting them together, and it's abbreviated ADJ. So very straightforward rules. You'll be using simplification more at first than you will be ADJ. So here's all of our rules. We've got MP and MT, which are about conditionals. We've got double negation, introduction, and elimination, which are about negations. Modus tollens is also about negations. And then we've got our new rules about how the conjunction works. Adjunction, here's how you build a conjunction. And simplification, left and right, here's how you take a conjunction apart. So pretty straightforward. So in our derivations, we have 4 kinds of moves still. So we will have our show line, and once you enter the show line, your goal is to get to that and apply direct derivation. So you always want to be, as you proceed through the rest of these steps, asking yourself, what do I need for direct derivation? Do I have it? Second step, bring in your premises, no problem. Third step, apply inference rules, but now we have 2 new inference rules to apply, S and ADJ, as well as MP, MT, and DN. You always want to apply S, and you always want to apply it twice. So when you have a conjunction, you want to use S on it immediately, and you can always apply S to a conjunction twice because you can get the left side and the right side, and you always want to apply S to give you twice to the conjunction to give you both the left and the right side. In some cases, that will give you more than you need, and in fact, you could have had a derivation where you only applied S once and got, let's say, the right side. If you know you're in that situation, fine, don't bother, but unless you know absolutely, oh, I only need to apply S once, just automatically apply it twice to give you both of the conjuncts, because you might very well need to use both of them on their own. So always apply S twice. Keep applying these rules using your new lines, right? You'll apply S, and then you may use what you get from S to do MP or what have you. Just keep going until you reach the end of the derivation and using the new lines. And you're still going to be needing to ask yourself, what do I need for MP? What do I need for MT? Simplification is easier to use than MP or MT because all you need is the conjunction. It just applies to the conjunction by itself. Whereas with MP or MT, you look at the conditional and you have to ask, okay, what do I need? What is the antecedent? What's the negation and the consequent? And then do I have them? And you're going to need to still do that because you're still working with conditionals, and the rules we have for working with conditionals haven't changed. So you're still going to be asking yourself those questions about MP and MT. And then finally, once you get the conclusion, you'll box and cancel with direct derivation. So those are our grammar and inference rules for the conjunction. In the rest of this module, we'll talk a little bit about symbolizing with the conjunction, and then actually do examples of derivations with conjunction, so you have a sense of, actually using these rules in derivations. So go ahead and check those videos out.